later. Cool. Well, thank you all for coming and being here. If anything, it's just nice to be at home, hanging out with other people in a different capacity, talking about something else other than with your roommates who didn't do the dishes. So I'm Melina. I'm the program operations manager and one of the coaches in the adjacent program. I am not a technical person. We have instructors who do the coding, but I know a lot about the program and can talk about what we'll be doing this fall and even next spring in our semester program. And we have Maggie and Zara with us, who are part of our remote summer program and can talk about their experience and Zara, your current experience, because you're taking valuable time out of your week that you could be coding to come chat with us. So I really appreciate you both being here. And then Latrell, could you introduce yourself? I didn't even catch who you were at the beginning of this.
Oh, no problem. I pretty much know everyone else. We're all friends and family at this point. I know everyone, so everyone's a familiar face. But I'm going to be a senior this year. So this is my last year, last hurrah. I'm currently a political science major and an econ and history double minor. And then I'm in our Ford Institute as well.
Amazing. All of the things.
Yes, all of the things.
Thinking back to college, I don't know how you all manage your time. I did half those things. All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen here and talk more specifically about the semester program and what that is offering. I'll talk specifically about the fall semester, and then we can talk about what changes there are for the following spring. But the plan right now is to do the remote fall semester. Sadly, can't be in person in San Francisco, but we think we have a pretty fun time online anyway, and there are some really big upsides, surprisingly, to having a remote semester. And that is just the place our world is in. And then it's TBD on spring, whether we'll be able to do that in person or if that will also be remote. We won't know that until schools make their decisions, which is a couple of months away. All right, so what is Adjacent? We are a partner of Albion College, sponsored by Davidson College as our accreditor, and we want to make sure that liberal arts students graduate with the technical skills they need to seize the opportunities, not just in the tech sector, but in all of digital transformation is hitting every job and is important to understand. And so we want to supplement the liberal arts with technical skills and mostly technical confidence that you can go out and learn anything that you want when it comes to technology. Because we know that whatever we do this semester will be different a year from now. And it's really about how do we teach people to keep up with that and feel confident in that environment. I myself went to Vassar College and majored in international studies and graduated college not even knowing how to use Excel, let alone like what my machine was, and ended up in the tech sector because of happenstance, and have really seen a lot of opportunity in that sector and a lot of scale for impact, and so have felt personally pretty invested in helping college students understand what are possible pathways that they could have. And it's all way more important this year as we're working from home remotely. There's also this myth that you have to major in computer science to work in technology, and that's not true. Having a little bit of an understanding of how tech works and the lingo is all it takes to be in what are most roles in the tech sector are not software engineering roles. So we focus on three things. One is the technical skills. So like we were talking about, Zara's digging into CSS, having never seen that before. Mainly, we build websites. So it's really learning about HTML and CSS, JavaScript, and sort of all the technology that surrounds those languages. We don't go too much into Python, although having an understanding of code in any sense is a bit of an advantage if you've seen that before. But we want everyone to be doing things that they've never done before, and that really challenges you. The second is leadership skills. So Adjacent is a very team-based environment. One of the students in this semester was like, a lot of people say programs are team-based, but you guys are like actually fucking do teamwork, even though it's a remote. And so Maggie and Zara, you should talk about what that's been like for you over the summer. As well as presentations. So you present every single week what you've done. And we ask you to do a lot of ad hoc stand-ups and then prepare for longer presentations. So you build some of those skills. And then finally, career development. So we want you to really understand, how does the thing that you're doing in the program apply to the work world? Is what I'm doing actually something that I'll see again after I graduate? We have an emphasis on doing informational interviews and bringing in a lot of professionals to come give feedback or talk to you, and opening our own networks to help you understand what you want to do and maybe make connections that will serve you in the future. And as part of this fall semester, we have an internship that we're working with the Davidson Career Office to place everyone in a 2 to 3 week project so that they're doing that for a company. And people have asked, like, can I do it for a company that I already know? And yes, absolutely. So it'll just be something that's extra applied after the Thanksgiving break. I think I like to say that this is not your typical online course. It is really not something that you show up to for a couple of hours a week and then go off and do homework by yourself and turn things in separately. It's really, we like to think of it as a work day, or a 9 to 5. I think most people report working 40 hours a week over the summer. It's a little bit more of a sprint than a semester, since we know people are doing it for a lot longer. But we're all online together in a platform called Discord. We have really flexible schedules and hours. For June, we moved our team meetings around to better fit people's time. Haven't had to do that in July. We have flexible help schedules, and it's sort of like office hours all day with your professors, and very few lectures or lectures that are as needed depending on what people are running into with their projects. But each week you're put into teams and you create a project and do a lot of that work on your own in pairs, in teams, and you're coordinating with those people rather than showing up as a whole group. Though we do meet as a whole group once per day. And then I'm sure you will, Maggie and Zara, you can also speak to that too. Another thing that is, I think, important to bring up is when you're thinking about a remote program, it's like, wait, how do we network with alumni and professionals and engage with the outside world while we're remotely? We bring people in. It's actually really easy to get people to show up virtually. It's like way easier than getting in person. And so we're all about bringing either speakers in who are CEOs or founders to talk about their experience in tech and how looking back on their career, like the non-linear story of it, and beginning to think about how are the things that I'm doing in this environment, or the things I want to be intentional about learning could be applied in the real world, as well as bringing in like panels from LinkedIn we had last week, which was really fun. And then we'll be doing the 2 to 3 week internship project. And then I also help set up a lot of individual informational interviews and help you reach out to your alumni and use LinkedIn and Handshake to leverage those throughout the semester. All right, I'll speed through some of these program details so we can get to Maggie and Zara, you guys talking about your experience and asking questions. But the program details is that starts August 24th, goes till Thanksgiving, and then after Thanksgiving, will be your internship. It's a 4 classes semester. So the first is critical web design. That's mainly the HTML and CSS piece, and the explorations in computer science. So mostly the JavaScript. And in a whole semester, we get way deeper into JavaScript and databases and some data visualization or user authentication, some harder stuff like that. And then those 2 classes are almost woven together throughout the semester. That's what you work on consistently in teams on a day-to-day basis. And then there's a third course called A Well-Examined Life, which is with a Davidson professor called Suzanne Churchill. She's in the English department, and it is this amazing course. If you've ever read the book Design Your Life or heard of that, it is all about reflecting on your own intentions and values and mapping out your mentors or your potential life tracks, or really thinking critically about what it means to live a successful life. I think as Maggie and Zara know, that we define success sort of really broadly at Adjacent. We're really excited if your project goes in this direction or in this direction, as long as you tie it to your why and you're really excited about it. So this is going to be a great course that really weaves well into not just like how does redefining success in learning and in computer science, but also redefining success for your whole life. I was doing some work on this course today and I was like, wait, I'm going to be taking this course. And then the internship at the end counts as a full course. So you kind of take 3 classes throughout the semester. And on the right is more things that we really want students to come away with. So we can talk a little bit about the weekly schedule here in a second. I'll send out these slides as well. But really, it is a full day thing, and we want you to balance your day, but we also want to be online with you and have professors be available for you all day. And so we'll typically meet once per day, have a couple of sessions marked out that are optional, only one mandatory, but people really see a lot of value in showing up to the other ones. And then to make sure that you're finding a lot of balance in your life as well, to be able to fit in any extracurriculars. We'll definitely have some students who are on campus at different colleges who then have to go to a sports practice or something. And so everything will end by 4 p.m. Eastern. And there might be some evening sessions or things like that. So I can send out these slides, but I wanted to stop sharing here and ask Maggie and Zara a couple of questions. Okay. And then maybe as we think of questions, Latrell or Dawn, and hi Marcella, it's nice to see you here, even though I can't see you. If anything comes to mind, let's just throw all of our questions into the chat, and then we can go through and answer them if anything is top of mind, or if there's anything that you think other students would want to know about. So Maggie, maybe I can start with you. I wanted to ask, just from the beginning, why did you decide to do Adjacent this summer? And I'll ask you the same thing, Zara.
I think the reason why I chose Adjacent, well, I knew obviously it was all about coding, and I haven't had any previous experience of coding, and I didn't really know, I guess, where else I would get this, and this is like a great start. And I remember I was talking to Melina too, and you were asking what I was excited about, what I was worried about, and one of the things was I didn't have prior experience, and I was a little nervous that other students did, and I wanted to know how that would work with like that and all of that. But you basically said like, no, people can come in with experience or no experience, and you still learn. But I knew like I wanted to gain those hard skills and be able to use that for like my career development, and basically, and to also like set me apart when applying to like these entry-level jobs, and just to have that on my resume.
Yeah, and you, Zara? Thanks, Maggie.
So mine was kind of similar to Maggie's. I was interested in like I was looking at internships in like data analytics and stuff like that, but a lot of them required like some experience with like Python or coding or something of that sort, and I just like couldn't find anything. Like I hadn't taken a computer science class before, and so I couldn't get that experience that I wanted, and so this was like a perfect way for me to learn about code and still get experience working with like projects and stuff like that.
Okay, so now I have to ask, how did it go for you, Maggie? Coming in with absolutely no experience, we definitely throw you in the deep end at Adjacent. Your first assignment was to just make a website, and then we're like, okay, bye, see you tomorrow. So what was that like?
That first assignment, I believe I was paired with Tyndall, and I don't believe she had any prior experience either. So we were researching, we were deep Googling, we were trying to figure out everything. But I probably spent like literally the entire day trying to figure it out. And it was just like the basics too. It's HTML. But once we got it figured out, we knew how to do it, how to go with it. So at first it was very stressful and overwhelming, and especially because there's like no, a lot of times you guys said like there's no like due dates, or like you work at your own speed and you figure it out. But I thought I was just very overwhelmed, but we worked together and were able to look up and find a lot about how you do the HTML and how to research that. So it ended up going really well, but at the beginning it's very stressful.
Yeah, it was definitely like different from what classes usually are like. Like we'll have instruction and then we'll go in and do the work. But I feel like this is a new way of learning for me, and I kind of liked it. Like I didn't realize that I could learn this way. Like we just kind of had the assignment and then we'll, like reviewed, like had the background information and all that afterwards. And so that was really cool to like get your hands in the work and then see the instruction after. So that was just a new way of learning for me, but I think that's something that I'll be using like later, like next semester too, and like in other classes and after college. Like, yeah, it's just like a new way of learning.
And what does the support of the instructors, how would you describe the interaction that you have with the instructors? Do they just give you the assignment and leave, or what's your relationship with them?
Usually we were given the assignment, and there with Discord there's like open desks that you're able to go to at any point. And truly I went to Tara and Jesse's desk all the time to ask questions, but they were always open for questions and to help at any point. So they were always there, and truly like one wanted us to succeed, but we're there to help us succeed too.
Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't just like give us the answer right away. They would help us find techniques and ways to look for the answer on our own using the tools that we had. So like they'd like give us suggestions of things to Google, or like look like ways to look at stuff that we wouldn't have seen before, so that we could use those skills in other problems that come up in the future. So it wasn't just like that one problem they're helping us with, it was like a long term, like helping us in the long term basically.
Yeah, I think Jesse said it at one point. He's like, we're teaching you to learn, like, we're thinking of where you're at 5 years from now, so that you still have the skills way down the line. I'm glad you brought up Discord, because I always find it helpful to do a quick screen share of what it looks like. So if any of you have used Slack before, it's really similar to that, except that there's voice channels. So you can see that Tara, she's one of our instructors, she's at her desk. And so she's free. If you were just like, hey, I want to drop in and like, I have a question or I'm confused, you could go pop in. And if you show up at her desk, if I popped in right now, she would be like, hey, Melina, what's up? In her very calming voice. Or a lot of times this is a channel called Help, and Tinley is just like, what on earth does this mean? Like, here's a screenshot of what's going on. I have I Google searched it and I think I know. And then they just have a discussion that anyone can read in case someone also has that problem. And then we also have like a sign off and sign off on channel, which is just memes. So we at least have some fun together as well. It's kind of like a place that you can communicate, and the place that you work with your team. So if you go down, you can see that people are like in rooms together in their teams working on their projects. And so we could pop in and be like, hey, what's going on in your project? And so it's a really nice way to be together all day without being on Zoom all day, right? Listening to someone lecturing on Zoom for more than an hour is very painful in our experience. And so while we definitely have some longer days on Zoom when we're presenting our projects or doing a longer activity, I mean, some of it's inevitable, but we try to hold that to once a week instead of every single day, so that you really feel like you know what you're working on and you can dictate the way that your day goes, or the way what your time is just with your schedule. what other questions should we ask of you? I mean, I have a million, but Latrell, is there anything burning in your mind, or Marcella?
No, not necessarily about the aspects of the programming components. I do have some questions about perhaps maybe like the networking opportunities. I know because perhaps a better framework for me is I'm thinking more oriented towards the spring, mostly out of the fact I can't move my schedule in the fall anyway. That took heaven and earth to organize just in general. But um, for the spring, especially since there is a possibility that the in-person opportunity could happen, I was just wondering, maybe reflecting on past years, what is sort of the interaction experience between the students who attend and their ability to network with professionals in the industry in San Francisco?
Yeah. Before I dive into the San Francisco piece, because it's actually pretty similar, Maggie or Zara, did you come to any sessions that stuck out to you?
I think those are.
Yeah, so one of the ones that I went to recently was Melina's friend Mithra, and she just talked about like what she does and like her career path leading up to where she's at today. And it was just cool to see like, I don't know, I feel like when speakers come in on campus, we usually just get there like upfront, like this is what I did. But it was like a lot more informal, and we just like she just told us about her life and like how things have gone for her, and we've like a lot of us have connected with her again, and I feel like we learned a lot from her.
And besides just I guess like talking about like companies, I know there were people that came in, and I don't have the name on hand, but he talked about like personality traits, and we then like split up into groups and figured out like our things about our own personality, and then how we could use that in a group too, which I really like, just because it kind of helped you gauge like what do they need and what do they need from you and what do you need to give them. So there were a lot of different aspects, but I like that too.
Yeah, it's fun to have guests come in that aren't just talking, but are a bit more interactive, I find, over especially remotely. And frankly, in person, same thing. So Niall, who did our social styles session remotely, he came into our program in person in San Francisco and just led the exact same thing, but instead of a Jamboard or Poll Everywhere, whatever we used, we were using like real sticky notes to put things up. So we have a lot of guests just come in, or for your Friday presentations, we'll have people drop by and watch your presentations, and then stick around afterwards and like informational interview and just talk about their lives or talk about what they do for jobs. I think one big aha moment is networking is actually just making friends, right? Like no one actually likes to go to a networking event because it's like, hello, my name is. But instead we want to create really genuine connections around like, yeah, learning to code is hard, or wow, like being on a team, building skills in that conflict, like let's connect on that level. And then we also try to bring in getting a sense of different tech companies and the culture there. There's sort of the like fancy, shiny tech company of like LinkedIn. We had some recruiters come and do a panel about what they look for in early entry talent. And I like everyone who comes in is always like, yeah, get my email me, link in with me, let me know if I can help in any way. But they can at least speak to like, okay, here's what it's like to work at LinkedIn. One of the students here was like, oh, actually my mom has a really cool virtual tour of her data center that we should set up. And so we'll try to do some like, we haven't really figured out virtual tours since no one is back at work, and Google just announced that they will be working from home until next summer, which doesn't bode well for our spring in San Francisco program. But when we're in person, we will go to different companies like Instacart and like take a walk around their offices. And one of the cool things is just being able to look at like a engineer's computer and be like, oh wait, my computer looks like his computer. Like when we're like doing the same thing, or being able to hear or ask questions and realize that like people have really similar stories to you, and that you may never have thought that you could go work for Facebook, but you absolutely could. And like we know recruiters in that area that we're more than happy to connect you with. So it's like the shiny big tech company, but then there's also a lot of other ways that technology is included in nonprofits, in policy, in we just had an informational interview with this woman, one of my friends who works for the Czech Republic around data misinformation spread by Russia, and like what the fight against the Russia misinformation campaign in Europe and the US has been like, and the different responses. So we just like talked about that for a while, and having a sense of like how that technology actually works gives you a pretty different lens on that. So does that answer your question, Latrell?
Yeah, that was pretty good. That's cool.
We try pretty hard to be like, I don't know, what are you interested in? Like in San Francisco last summer, students were really interested in, they were really struck by the homeless population. I mean, it is so huge in San Francisco, especially if you come from somewhere that does not have that level of homelessness, which is not even Seattle. And so we like all went and volunteered at this local nonprofit and served lunch for a day, and then talked to their Salesforce engineer. Like, who would have thought that a food shelter has someone who's managing all of their data and setting up their systems online? But if you have like an online volunteer portal, you need someone who like understands that. So we like chatted with her about what that job is like. So we try to match it to whatever that specific cohort is really interested in.
Okay.
Yeah, San Francisco or the Bay Area, small world. It's pretty easy to like be like, oh wait, you work for Uber and you're like, how do all these names, how do you all work for such cool, like huge places? But yeah. What other questions? Marcella, you can type in the chat if anything comes to mind. Or Latrell, any other things that you're like, what's that like?
I think I'm good for now.
I have a quick question. Maybe you don't know this yet because we haven't had anybody out there for the full semester, but do you know like the breakdown credit-wise for the 4 classes? Because students usually get, we use units at Albion, so 4 units for a semester, which would equate out to like 16 credits other places.
At Davidson, it's 1 class, 1 credit too.
Okay.
So if one semester is 4 credits, I'm pretty sure it'll be 4 credits.
Okay, so they wouldn't lose any credit by doing the adjacent program. They'd still get their 4 units. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, and we're looking into ways to be flexible with that in terms of, because we know that students have, it's like, I need to take this 1 class on campus. And so, yeah, Davidson's working on like, okay, what could be possible? But I think part of the cool experience of adjacent is being in this cohort that's going through it all together, and you end up really knowing and trusting each other. There's like some students from past cohorts who have shown up and been like, oh yeah, we know what this is like. So you're able to build bonds across cohorts and like feel like you've really built relationships with each other. What was it like for you two? I'm curious, building relationships with people you've never met before and have like no connection with, because you're the only 2 Albion students.
Yeah, at first it was definitely different because I feel like a lot of the students, at least in my cohort, were from Davidson College. So I feel like, like everyone knows each other and it's hard to get acquainted, or I did think that. And then when we split up into groups, literally from the first day, it's like you kind of have to get to know these people. Like you have to work with them. And that's how it worked for me. And especially, I think every Friday we met with like the same group too. So it was Matt and, I'm blanking, this other girl, and we kind of like formed like a friendship too. So it was fun to like get to know them over the 4-week period, and just get to know more about them too.
And yeah, also like on the cohort level, I feel like since we're doing projects together all the time, like it was a larger group than most of our classes, like around 30 people, I think. But I still feel like I got to know everyone on like a deeper level than I would in like a regular class. since we're always working together and we're just, yeah, like we're always together. So it was like really deep bonds formed, I felt like.
That's awesome to hear. It's one of the things that when we moved to a remote setting, I was like, oh, having that vulnerability with each other when you're learning something new is so key. Or else people like I always say it's very collaborative and not competitive. People are not like withholding things. Everything's very out in the open about how can we use this to help each other. We actually think of the whole semester as like, how do we help each other so that by the time we get to the end, we're all like as amazing as we can be, because we're going to have to work with those people a couple of weeks from now. So investing in them now is worth it. The teamwork aspect. Yeah, do you guys want to say a quick word about the teamwork aspect? I know I asked that. What has working in teams, how is it different than working in a team at school?
I think there are definitely advantages and disadvantages, but I looked at it more so from the advantages side. Like even if you have to meet up for a project or a paper, any like group assignment at school, you have to physically meet up on campus, figure out a time, make sure it's good with everyone's schedules. Whereas working online and remotely from home, you were able to just say, hey, what's a good time? And it's a click of a button and you're already talking to each other and working on the project. And you could do that at any point. And it was like, if, at least with my groups, I felt like I could work on some of it while I was like not busy during the day. And if they had something going on, that's okay. And then it would be like roles reversed and they'd be working on something when I couldn't. But there was always, I guess, like a middle ground where you could meet up at really any point, but it was, I felt more convenient.
But to say something, I just blinked. Oh yeah, so basically, I feel like before this, I kind of had more of an aversion for group projects, just 'cause, like, you don't know who's gonna pitch in what to what extent. But I feel like here, since we're all working on stuff at the same time and like group projects are the main thing that we're doing, everyone kind of pitches in, and like the stuff we've learned, like the social styles and things like that, have helped us to find strengths at the beginning so we can like discuss like, I want to do this section because this is what I'm good at, or this is something I want to learn more about. And so we can divide that up in a better way since we're doing like everything together. So I feel like in this program we learned a lot of like new styles to work in groups that are helpful.
Yeah, it's a big emphasis. Last question before I get to Marcella's, and then we'll wrap up, is how, you mentioned this a little bit, but like, what are the skills that you learned that you're taking away from just 4 weeks with us? And how do you see that applying later?
One of like the biggest things that I think I learned is like I'm always preparing for like the future and like applying for entry-level jobs and like full-time career. So I'm thinking of like always like resume building. And I know you guys like truly went over that with us, which was very helpful. But if in an interview we talked about like, tell me about like a situation that was hard, you said we were given 72 hours to create a project using code and create a presentation at the same time while also working with people that were on a totally different time zone, maybe 12-hour difference. And you were able to like complete it and get the project done. But I think that's huge, especially preparing for the future and wanting to talk about this in an interview. So that was just like one of the biggest things that I think that I got out of this.
Yeah, that was definitely something that stuck out to me too. And then also just like communicating and working in groups and stuff. Like we talked about this, but it's not something that you usually like pay attention to, but I feel like being more careful about how you're working with other people can like change your product a lot. And so like being more intentional about the little things is something that I think I took away.
Awesome. And then, yeah, Marcella, thanks for asking that question. So you can go see and check out the application on our website right now, adjacentacademies.com. It's like 3 short essay questions, really. And then it sounds like there's a sort of a specific timeline based on school. And so you can apply, I think, Dawn, do you know when you're opening or starting to, people are thinking about spring at Albion?
Right, so as soon as we get back to campus, we'll start taking spring applications for the programs. So anytime, after everybody's back on campus, and if you want to talk about it before that, I'd be glad to help you. There's to explain it, there's like two aspects. I know Zara and Maggie didn't have to go through this for the summer, but there is an Albion application called Brits Abroad that needs to be completed first, which is essentially you asking Albion for permission to go to adjacent. So once you get approval from Albion, then we kind of give you the green light and say, yep, now you can start working on your adjacent application.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, with that, thank you all for coming. I'll send out this recording and the slideshow after this, and then feel free to pass that along, forward that to anyone you know who might be interested or just curious in general, especially as the spring is also sort of up in the air. I feel like next week is up in the air right now, but we still have to think about these things anyway, which is really, really hard. But really appreciate all of you coming. Thank you, Zara and Maggie, for hopping on. Zara's probably like getting notifications about like why her code is not working with her team right now. So thanks so much. And I'll stop recording.